Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered, this is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing. Prove me wrong, I'll wait. She's back, the two-time NHRA Top Alcohol Dragster World Champion who shocked the drag racing community by retiring at the close of the 2020 season to start a family, apparently checked that box and could not resist the allure of the drag strip. She's chasing a new championship in 2023, however, making headlines last week with news that she'd be competing in the inaugural Nitro Chaos Championship Series, a 4-race gauntlet across the Midwest. She's got sponsors galore, social media followers for days, 102,000. Holy moly. Give it up for Megan Meyer, everybody. Maybe. What's going on, Megan? How are you?
There you go. What's up, man? Thank you. I'm so glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, man, we're glad to have you. Was this, I mean, as I said, I know it was well documented that you decided, and this was, we encouraged it. We applauded you. You decided that you wanted to start a family, got married, had a little one. Life is good. But apparently something happened along the way, and it's not like your family got out of drag racing entirely. You know, the legend himself, your father, Randy Meyer, has been actively involved during your brief absence. But, I mean, what spurred this whole getting back behind the wheel?
Yeah, so honestly, I had zero plans of coming back. When I made the decision at the end of 2019, so winning the first championship, after all the stress and the headache that you have to go through to win a championship, I was like, man, I'm done. I'm burnt out. I'm over it. I need a break. And so I decided that 2020 was going to be my last year. No idea COVID was going to happen. We were going to win the second championship. We had meetings with sponsors before any of that happened and told them that I was going to be taking a step back and really focusing on the business side of running a race team, because that's a full-time job, and really had no desire of coming back to the driver's seat until I heard about the Nitro Chaos. And I was like, man, that is it. That is the series that was built for me. It's not too serious and political like NHRA is. It's all close to home. I'm based in Kansas City. All the races are within a few hours from here. The farthest one is the first one out in Cincinnati, which I think is like 10-hour drive for us. Not too bad. So, and it's only 4 races, which is perfect because I can still, scratch that itch that I get for drag racing, but I'm not going to be away from my family for 6 months out of the whole year like I was chasing NHRA.
How many races did you have to, forgive my ignorance on this, but I know that you count divisional things are one endeavor, but how many races were you going to? Like when you won those 2 championships, like how many NHRA national events did that entail?
Yes, so it's 17. And okay, so
holy moly. Yeah. I mean, you're a pro racer at that point.
17 is for the national title, right? And then there's additional races on top of that.
Yeah, so NHRA is so confusing. So you have to do 10 nationals. And then you can go to more than 10 because at the time, I think they offered like 16 that Top Alcohol could race at. You only pick 10 that you would get points at, your first 10. And then they add in regional points. And for regional points, that's a whole nother different series. You could also win the championship in that region, which for Top Alcohol Dragster and Funny Car, it's not divisional, it's regional. So they combined the 7 divisions into 4 different regions. So we are technically Division 5 and 4 put together. And so we could race, I think it was 5 out of 7 regional races, and your best 3 of those first 5 counted towards national points.
Hold on. I'm trying to do.
This is
Let me
like
pull up
when-
my calculator here.
Yeah.
I'm an art major.
I don't know
so this
why
math, I
they
got to slow
decided
down
to do
here.
it like this.
This is exact conversation when I try to explain my family. Like, now that's your stepsister and that's your half. You know, like,
but
This is
to
Jake
your point,
explaining the number
Megan,
of beers he
you-
had to his
yeah,
wife.
no
when he
shit,
gets
right?
home.
But like, you can't. I know that there were a lot of things that sent you down the path of like, hey, I'm burnout, traveled all over creation. Like you mentioned, the stress, everything that goes with competing for a world championship. And I don't want to admit, like, those aren't bad things. Like, winning a world championship should be hard, should be stressful, should be all those things we just described. However, I do come back to the fact that for most people, drag racing is a hobby. It's a sideline. And no matter how serious you are about it, it's still like, if you're being honest with yourself, it's a hobby. Like, you probably do something else to earn a living.
here comes the hate mail.
Oh, I know. I'm going to get in trouble. But like, I think that's true. So for me personally, I feel we're in the era of Nitro Chaos. We're in the era of these regional deals, smaller. And I don't say smaller as a bad thing. I mean, it's
those are
good
2-day
thing.
events, right? Are they?
Yes,
they're
man.
2-day events, so you're not there for a week. I mean, all this stuff adds up really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you get 2 qualifying runs Friday, last chance qualifier Saturday, and then eliminations Saturday night. So that's it. It's not get to the track Wednesday, set up Thursday, race
I love
Friday,
that.
Saturday, Sunday, tear down Monday, drive to the next track Tuesday, Wednesday, park. NHRA, there's no break at all. And so with this, it's nice. I can show up Thursday night, Friday morning, set up the pit, go make 2 qualifying hits, and you get plenty of time in between runs to, tear down motors, whatever you need to do, which our crew guys are so used to the 45 minutes you used to get in between rounds.
These dudes are in the water box ready to rock and roll. And everybody's like, hey man, we're cleaning up the last mess or what.
Yeah.
So funny.
You know what I like
like-
about that the most, though, is, I love that you get to finish the eliminations in front of the fans on Saturday night.
Yes.
I say it all the time, but I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so cool. So I don't know if you guys noticed this guy right here.
see it.
Yeah.
Well, I did notice that, but I was slightly concerned that you're in like an end of the
Zooming in.
world
There we go.
bunker.
Okay, I know this this foil.
Are everything okay in Kansas City?
Yeah, we literally just moved to this house last week, and I had my dad come over yesterday to set up my desk, and so I haven't even figured out like my whole office situation area here, but I'm definitely gonna be
That's all
covering up these walls, adding some lights or whatever.
You need to put like a gun
this is-
safe right behind you, and then racks
I
with
thought it was- yeah.
the food and canned
foods.
goods, powdered milk.
This is Mike's like perfect office, right, Mike? he has all these theories, so
No, actually, I'm jealous. We don't have that here in the South. I thought this was just your typical Midwest tornado deal. I grew up watching Wizard of Oz, and that deal ruined me. Like, these people go down in these little things underground to get away from tornadoes. Count me out, man.
Well, this isn't even a full basement. As you can see, there's windows. So, yeah. Anyways, so when we were at
sorry.
Mocant and we won the Nitro Chaos race there last year, it was so cool because we got to finish the race in front of the fans. It's at night, so you can see all the big header flames, and it's really cool. We've actually added some different headers onto my car for this year, so we can have really big header flames on the car. And I mean, nothing to help with performance. It's strictly just
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
so my dad engineered this whole system to get big header flames. And so
I
awesome.
like to hear that. That is
Can we send Randy over to Pro Nitrous pits and get that
Yes.
situation fixed? Because that's what those guys need over there.
Man, I think we need to like give a round of applause to Randy Meyer. Like that's but I didn't plan on going right down this path immediately, but we will because it's here for the taking. Do you think, Megan, that the thing I find interesting about your story, and I'm kind of grabbing a hold of this conversation, but while we have you, one of the things that I've been inspired by with your story in particular for years and years and years is that you've reached like palpable star status in drag racing without ever, racing in Top Fuel, without having raced in Pro Stock or Funny Car. You've done it on the back of your social following. You've done it on the back of your fan base and really building a community of people that are invested in your life. And I find it really interesting because I think there's a belief system that exists in drag racing where you have to race Top Fuel. You have to race No Prep Kings. You have to be in one of these televised, highly visible sanctions or series to turn it into a career. But you defy that logic. And I'm just curious, like you're rolling out a new sponsor, and we'll let you talk about that, Gunk, everything that you have going on. I find it interesting, kind of curious. Does it matter at all in your mind where you race or what you race when it comes to getting a sponsor? Because there was a post that's like circulating social media, and there's like been a lot of conversation around sponsorship and what's required and what you should do. And all these words get thrown around, ROI, but I just, which I think is actually a little overused, to be honest, at this point in time. But anyways, I'm just curious, like you're getting ready to race 4 races.
I like ROI.
Yeah. In top alcohol dragster. You're someone who fought the battle that so many racers have fought, right? Like, oh shit, like first rounds at 7 a.m. on set. You know what I mean? Like all these things, like the crowd hasn't even got here. Hell, they haven't even opened the track and they're running us. Does any of that matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, girl.
It's all, so social media is the easiest way to grow your brand because it is free. And I had no intention of, getting to this point when I got started, but I learned, so I studied graphic design in school, knew absolutely nothing about graphic design. I went there just to learn that because I knew it was a skill that I could bring into racing because I knew I wanted to race full time and I knew that I needed a job where I could work remotely, whether on the road or at home. And so that was just the first thing I went to was graphic design. But what I learned through that about how to diversify your skills translates into so much when it comes to racing. And so that's where I really learned about social media. That was back in 2011, 2012, which was when businesses started using Facebook pages to really grow followings. And then they started selling products on social media. And then that's when Instagram really started booming. And so I was kind of on, just riding this wave of this forefront of social media. And I just kind of did what people were doing that I like to follow and, posting about my daily life and behind the scenes and what's going on at the race shop and what we're doing in the pits and, how I suit up and get ready for a race and then the top end celebrations and the winner circles and then tearing down the pits and traveling. I was sharing all of that. And that's what people want to see because race fans don't get to see that part because you're either racing before they get to the track or they can't get to the race because it's all the way across the country or whatever, or they have to wait till it airs on TV a week later to be able to see it and know what happens. And so I was just kind of doing what I like to see on social media from other people and was just doing that for myself and my fans and it worked. And so that is what I teach to other racers now is share everything, share all the behind the scenes, film and take pictures of everything because anything is content and you don't want to post a bad photo or a bad video, but bad is better than nothing at all. And a lot of racers kind of get into this hamster wheel where they're kind of scared to tell, post on social media. They're scared to say, hey, I'm going to this race. And then when they do, they'll tell people, hey, I'm going to be doing this bracket race or going to this national event or whatever. And then that's it. You don't hear from them till like a week later and you just ghost your followers. And so that's like one of the biggest things I teach is like stay consistent with it. Make sure you share your results. No matter.
Yeah, I saw you're even doing your blooper, your outtakes.
Yeah,
which I loved it.
Well, and it's great. I said this I think literally last week. I think what happens and I don't mean, I'm not like naming people to like set them on fire or whatever, but you see these like Corey Mahalik in these like crazy badass videos, and like I'm even pretty proud of some of the stuff that we've done, and it's like it doesn't have to be that. Like, just document. You don't have to create an epic video with perfect jump cuts and set to sound. Just post pictures. Just post whatever. Just document what you're doing.
Story, right?
And we've talked about it before, where drag racers, I think especially, they don't want to necessarily show the struggle or show that they're not out winning races or winning championships. It's like, no, I'll wait and post that stuff when I'm out here lighting up the scoreboard. And if you wait until that point, you've already missed it. You've got to show that journey. You've got to show the behind the scenes, like what you're saying.
Yeah, because then
what do you think about
relate to all that moving up to it?
I had this conversation with a customer recently. He was like, "Hey man, before we do any advertising or anything like that, or do any promotion of our brand, we kind of want to wait till we've like won some races and won some world championships." And I said, "Well, shit, man, we should probably just like not talk for a few years, because you're shortchanging like that. That's not a guarantee, and it's also not really relatable. Like, almost everybody in this sport has struggled, has DNQ'd, has lost in the first round, has made a fool of themselves, driven to the staging lanes, dragging their battery charger, you know what I mean? Whatever, right? All those things. And if you think you're going to somehow bypass that, or you should wait until you're perfect to start telling your story, you're crazy. I mean, like, tell it right now. Like, start now. I'm curious. It
almost goes back to advertising, like the consistency of running an ad over and over and over, so that when they do finally make that decision to purchase, or maybe they have purchased and it validates what they have already purchased. But, there's so many people out there that think, hey, I'm going to wait until I get, everything on the shelves here before I buy a full page ad, because they think that just one ad is going to just make everything just fly off their shelves.
That's a great
consistency
point
of it.
No, Corey Mahalik's in the comments right now. Let's pump the brakes here. No, but I mean, it's just like I'm going to be honest. I see some of these videos that people such as super talented individuals such as Corey put out, and I'm intimidated by it, where I'm going like, oh man, I don't know that we have anything that's remotely close to that. So we're just not going to post anything. The question I was going to have is about volume, because what we did for the World Series of Pro Mod, I had a lot of people ask me like, hey man, if you had to point to something that really drove the bus for the success of the World Series of Pro Mod, what would it have been? And I said volume. We didn't really focus on individual engagement with posts. And I'm only talking for us. I don't know the answers, but I do know what we did. And what worked for us was just volume. We created from the 1st of November till the end of the World Series of Pro Mod, March 5th, 2023, we created 500 pieces of content. And that's no exaggeration. Like, that's actually low. I mean, I know we literally generated 90 press releases and stories, right? And then 400 plus social media graphics or whatever. And we focused on volume, because I thought, there's no chance the results will be bad. Like, I don't know which one's going to work and which ones won't. But if we go at it with a machine gun, like Gatling gun approach, we're focused on volume. How much can we talk about this? I can't help but believe, whether there's like science to it or not, I can't help but believe it will help our outcome. Like, it will impact the outcome. If we 10 times, or I know it's like 10x or 20x or 30x the amount of content we create around this deal, I have to believe it will have a positive positive input or positive effect on the event. And it did. So I'm just curious, like, do you subscribe to the same thought process? I think people get kind of caught up on like, well, I posted a photo, but it only got 6 likes. So I posted a different photo with like a different outfit, or, like trying to, just post a bunch. What do you think of it?
Deleted that original one because it only got 6 likes. Right. Yes, 100%. So I love that. Volume and consistency is the key to marketing. And so whether it's promoting your own thing or for a sponsor, talking about it as much as you can really is what's going to get the point across. And so And in my classes where I teach sponsorship with racers, I tell them to follow the I don't remember exactly what it's called off the top of my head right now, but it's like the 7 points of marketing or something like that. 7 points of exposure, I think. And it's where you want to, whenever you're trying to approach a company for a sponsorship, I teach them you want to engage with at least 7 of their posts or send them 7 messages before you actually try to have a sponsorship meeting with them. You really want to get on their radar. And then the same thing goes when I'm promoting my own personal brand and stuff. I talked about this, kind of giving like little sneak peeks, building up hype to the big reveal that I did with the YouTube video on Monday. And I try to do it 7 times at least. 500 pieces of content would be great. And I probably have that much because I do have someone that is coming to film, and I do have a videographer that's going to be following me at all of my races, because we are going to be doing a vlog series for each Nitro Chaos race. And so we have a lot of content already, but I couldn't post it yet because I hadn't shown people what the car was going to look like. So now I can start posting all that, knocking all that out. I'm actually going to be doing a video later on today about the process of how we put the wrap on the car. I had my good friends, Chris Bishop and Donnie Durnenberger, came down from Minnesota to come and put the wrap on the car right before the Division 5 banquet. And so filmed that whole process, and now I'm able to edit it and throw it out there on social media for people to kind of see another behind the scenes of what actually goes on with a race car. It's not just show up at the track, fill up your gas tank and charge your battery and go. There's a lot more to it.
I just Googled this, and I don't know if this is the exact one you're talking about, but it's one I've referenced a lot. It talks about the rule of 7, the marketing rule of 7, that a prospect needs to hear the advertiser's message at least 7 times before they'll take action to buy that product or service. It's a marketing maxim developed by the movie industry in the 1930s. Studio bosses discovered that a certain amount of advertising and promotion was required to compel someone to see one of their movies. I think it's interesting because I had a conversation with one of our advertising clients at Drag Illustrated yesterday, and I said that, like, we all know McDonald's sells French fries, but they remind us of it all the time, and it's like a top of mind thing. And I think that that's kind of what social media gives all of us the tool to do, is just stay top of mind, stay relevant, like create, and you're not. It's interesting because you're not beholden to race results, right? Because you don't need it. Prior to social media and some of the independent media that exists in the sport of drag racing, I used to always joke that to get any like meaningful airtime, you needed to do one of 2 things: win, which is extremely hard to do, right? Or wreck really bad, which is something that you want to avoid by and large, right?
That's easy.
But those are like the but it's easy to do, but you would like to avoid it. And I think it's interesting because social media has kind of created a bypass where, hey, you could lose in the first round, but if you do a good job, like if you have an audience, you can share that message and tell that story and probably reap the benefits of it. So like when you go to sponsors and stuff, Megan, like do conversations about like how many races you're going to do? Like, I mean, I'm sure that's part of it to some extent, but they want to be associated with you. And you don't necessarily need to go racing at this point to be a meaningful or a valuable ambassador for them. Is that right?
Yes, exactly right. So, so my mentor and advisor is Alex Stryler, which if you guys don't know who he is, Google him. He's got a best-selling book on Amazon called Motorsport Sponsorships. And thankfully, we were able to meet a few years ago, and he's been my personal advisor since then when it comes to marketing and sponsorships. And he says all the time, you don't need to win races to get sponsors. You don't even need to show up at the track to get a sponsorship nowadays. It doesn't matter your performance. That's probably, I don't know, 10% at best of the sponsorship. And it's because there's so many other media outlets out there that you can get the sponsor's name and product and brand exposure other than just the, the TV time or, whatever it is whenever you're winning the races. And like I said earlier, like with NHRA, they don't show that until a week later. And who's going to stay up till 3:00 in the morning to watch the Lucas Oil Sportsman replay on Fox Sports 2 at 3:00 in the morning? Like, I never did. and then whenever like I did watch it, I just fast forward. Like, I'd only want to watch the parts that I was on selfishly and just fast forward through everything else. And so, yes, you don't need to rely on the TV. You don't need to rely on the races. It's all about you and your personal brand and what are you bringing to the table. So you can use your race car to still get the sponsorships without going to the track. So one thing that we always did before COVID was doing displays and sampling. And so I just talked to the guys last night about this on the Competition Plus Power Hour about Dots Pretzels. And everybody knows we had Dots Pretzels as a sponsor, and we would go to the stores that they were sold at the day before a race, bring the race car, sign autographs, and give out free samples of pretzels for people that have never tried it before. They love it. Everybody loves them. And then they would just grab a bag, throw it in their cart, and check out. And so immediately saw, increase in sales because of that. And Dots people never came to a single race. They didn't care about that part of it. They just cared about the sampling and actually selling their products. So yes, the racing part is fun. I love it. I'm not knocking on that part, but that's not everything nowadays.
That's some interesting stuff that some people probably don't want to hear, actually.
Yeah, it's not.
It's
just
hard to
about
hear.
the logo on the side of your car. That doesn't really do anything anymore, other than it just looks good in pictures.
Yeah, because we hear a lot. I don't need to advertise. My brand is on the track. It's what I'm doing on the track. It's our records, our performance. But that's really interesting. I mean, we've seen and followed your career and seen you doing these displays and the giveaways and the sampling, like you said. How much of it, when you go into a sponsorship meeting, let's say, how much of it is the B2B and sort of like creatively connecting these dots or bringing companies together more than just put your logo on my car or on my fire suit or on all my stuff, and we'll blast that to the mainstream audience that's watching on TV or in the stands. But how much of it is a B2B function of connecting companies together like that?
Overall, I would say about 80% of it is. And it really depends on the type of company and where they are at in their journey. So if it's a newer company, a startup, they need that exposure. They need their logo planted everywhere. They need people to see it, know it, and know what it is. But they usually don't have the money to really pay for the big advertising. So typically those ones are just going to be like product exchange sponsorships. Whereas other ones where it's a big corporation, they don't care about the logo placement or, all that type of stuff. They're the ones that aren't probably going to be going to the races unless you do a big hospitality event for them where you can then connect them with another business person. So whether it's someone that could help with warehousing, distributing, shipping, product development, or it's something where they want to entertain their own customers or employees. We've done a lot of that with NGK Spark Plugs actually in the past. And so those big companies, they care more about that B2B part, whereas newer companies want the brand exposure and all that. So it kind of depends. It's very individualized, just like how every race team is.
I think it's worth maybe expounding on the fact that you have to be when you go into any of these relationships or any type of sales type of situation, one of the things that I preach constantly to like my team is we have to what did they need? Like, what's their pain point? What's the problem they're trying to solve? And then we have to challenge ourselves to go, hey, what is it? What do we do product wise that can solve this problem? Right. And it's like what we try to do is know more about the audience. Like, hey, our customers, they've maybe, to your point, Megan, they don't have a budget. they're an upstart, or they're a new business, and they don't have the budget required to like focus on branding and run an ad in every magazine and be everywhere and sponsor every car and sponsor scoreboards and race, whatever events. They don't have the budget for that. So like, what do we have that allows them to serve whatever purpose they have? Because I would imagine that if you had a sponsor come to you, Megan, like let's just use NGK or whatever, and they said, hey, what we need to do is we need to incentivize salespeople, or we need to provide hospitality for our corporate partners or whatever, you probably would have to face the situation or face the fact like, man, we almost need to go NHRA racing to solve this problem for these people. Like maybe we're not a good fit because they need the big national event experience and they need tons of people and they need that atmosphere maybe to serve that purpose. Whereas like, whatever other company that you're working with currently, maybe they're like you said, more focused on sales or connecting the dots behind the scenes, or a B2B deal with, hey, connect me with this person and we'll kick back into your program. It's just like identifying the objectives, identifying what they need, and how your race program or you as a personality or like with your brand can solve those problems. It's not a one size fits all type of deal. And I've seen, especially at this point in time, like if you look at one of my favorite examples, and this may be a valuable segue for us, but one of my favorite examples is that up until the last few years, John Force Racing, arguably the most visible drag racer of all time, didn't do hospitality. Like it always blew my mind because you'd walk by his pits and be like, where's the tent full of people from Castrol? Or where's the tent full of people from whatever brand he was associated with at the time? But that's not what people were going to him for. I mean, he was more of an ambassador. They were using him in commercials. They wanted to be associated to him or associated with him personally. But now, as the world is changing and he's got Peak on the side of his car, Peak's bringing in guests. They need a venue to bring in guests and entertain customers and entertain employees and whatnot. So, I mean, do you agree with that? That it's like kind of whatever their goal is or whatever you've got to provide, you got to solve whatever individual problem they have.
Yeah.
You have a visitor there?
Yeah, my husband's being a creep.
Well, tell him to say hi.
He walked off now. Yeah, so I have a really good example of this. So last year, when I did decide to do the Mocan Nitro Chaos race, I told my dad, well, first off, okay, I want people to know that I have to pay for my ride just as I'm like a rental car driver. Even though I'm the one running the checkbooks and paying all the bills, and I still have to pay for my own ride with my dad. So I have to find sponsorships if I want to race. It's not a free program with Randy Meyer Racing. And so when I decided to do Nitro Chaos last year, one, I needed a little bit of funding. So I had reached out to some old contacts that I had maintained relationships with. And at that time, they were no longer in drag racing. They had kind of drifted over into another motorsport. And I was like, hey, can I like reel you back in? And I made this marketing deck with a whole shirt, like crew shirt design, a whole rendering of the dragster, everything, like a whole branded marketing deck. And I didn't pitch it to them yet because the way how like my process is to have a discovery call with that potential sponsor first to figure out what their goals are and what they are needing before I pitch to them. Because, and this is the prime example, because you don't know what their goals are. You don't know what they're chasing after. Is it research and development? Is it sales? Is it content for social media? You know, what is it that they need help with for this year? And so I had made this deck based on what we had accomplished in the past, and I was just going to pretty much do that exact same thing for them. After I had that discovery call, 100% pitched or like threw that in the trash can and had to make a brand new deck because that's totally not what they wanted. And if I had came to them with that marketing deck I made, they would have definitely said, hey, Megan, like, this is great, but this really isn't going to help us out right now, so we're going to have to pass.
Not a good fit.
So thankfully, I took what they had said in our discovery call, made a new deck, new car design, all that, and they approved that. And so it just kind of goes to show you that, yes, it's all about what their goals are.
That's great, though, that you're willing to adapt to what they're wanting. You know, because
like
there's probably a lot of people that don't want to. You know, I mean,
well, that's the one side. Like, hey, listen, I'm going to send you my the one version of my sponsorship deck, and you either buy this son of a bitch or not.
It's a lot of work. It's hard enough to create one deck, hard. And so just the dedication and the level of commitment that it takes to do this. I mean, I can think of so many racers right now that wouldn't do a display, wouldn't go to a restaurant or do a display, or like you said, at Menards or with the Dots deal. I'm not doing a display. You sponsor me. Here's my deck. You know
what I do.
You know my my accolades and what I've won and what I've done. Sponsor me or not. Put a decal on the car. That's all you're getting. And that is the way it's been for all these years. And it simply doesn't work. And for you to say all this work that you're going to, I mean, I know what it takes to put these decks together and then to redo them and tailor each one to each specific company. It's a full-time job. And that's probably a reason why we don't see more successful sponsorship acquisition in our sport, is because of the time level that it takes to do this.
I hadn't decided if I
want. It goes back to what she said. What she said was talked about earlier, that you don't see something for a week later, because it is time consuming. If you're going to sit down and make an actual post where you're going to tag everybody and
I won't make it. It takes me 2 hours.
I know, and you know, we talk about it all the time, but there's a lot of times when we leave somewhere and I'm like, man, I didn't get near enough stuff, you know, or I didn't post near enough stuff. Because it is hard, because you're trying to tag everybody, you're trying to put the right hashtags and whatnot. And I think that with stories and reels and stuff like that, it's made it easier because you can turn the camera around and say what you want to say instead of having to type it all out, and then maybe turn the camera on yourself, turn the camera back around to your program or whatever you're working on in the pits, and you can tell that story through stories and reels and not have to make, you know, just endless posts.
Well, it's also like doing what you're good at. Like I do, you know, who comes to mind to me is like Kelly Wade. I don't know if everybody on the call like knows who Kelly Wade is, but she's a longtime contributor to Drag Illustrated. She writes for NHRA.com and National Dragster, and she has her own business, Winlight News, and she does PR for multiple teams. But she's like a wordsmith, like the real deal, and she writes these like breathtaking Facebook posts, right? And I'm going, I fancy myself a writer, but like I can't do that consistently, but I can ramble on in front of the camera. So it's like there's so many shut up.
No way.
Both of you two, enough. No, I'm just joking. But like it's like you got it. There's so many tools available to us. Whatever you're comfortable with, there's no excuse at this point in time. Like maybe you're Kelly Wade and you can just churn out killer content, like, or killer written copy like that. But you know, for me, I've had to find that if I want to get back in the rhythm of like writing columns for the magazine, I got to just say it in front of a camera, speak it, and then like transcribe my video. That's probably the best play for me because that's what comes the most naturally to me. So it really is an interesting thing. But the point I wanted to make, and I hope that resonates with folks, is I do think there's a belief system right now that I can't get sponsored because I don't race. You know, where I race isn't on Discovery Channel. I can't get sponsored because I'm not in Top Fuel or Funny Car. And if we leave anybody with anything here today, and what I think you really represent, Megan, and this is, again, just my humble opinion, is it's like proof positive evidence that it doesn't matter. And I'm not trying to at all disparage or downplay the significance of racing top alcohol dragster and going nearly 300 miles an hour. I mean, in all that you do, it's unbelievable. But the fact remains that like this stuff is rarely televised. Does not have the fanfare of some of these other types of racing. But nonetheless, here you are as a shining example of, hey, it can happen. Right. And it's by no accident. This isn't like you just met the right person or you were at the right cocktail hour, you know, and one thing led to another, or you got family money, you know, that's not the case. Right. I mean, you built a system, and like you said, via consistency and volume, all these various things. I think that's fantastic, and I hope it's inspiring, because I see it. I see all these guys that are racing the no prep back of the track shootout in Rockingham Dragway or whatever, and they think, oh man, I'm never going to get any help, or I'm never going to get anybody to care about. Now, man, you have to change your belief system around this stuff. You have to recognize that that really, where you race and what you race is such a small part of it. Because I would argue that John Force would have maybe not all the sponsorship support that he has today without 16 world championships, but probably. You know what I mean? Like, he's a character. He has shared his story. He has done a great job of, like, everybody that cares about drag racing knows this dude grew up in Southern California in a trailer house and blah, blah, blah. He was a truck driver. I mean, he's done a fantastic job of using every tool available to him to tell his story, to endear himself to the masses, to be relatable. I venture to say that he would have all the sponsors right now today, whether he won 16 world championships or not. And he probably doesn't want to hear that, but I believe it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's 100% true. And yeah, I hope that is a takeaway that the racers that are watching live or watching the replay, that they take away. It is really just your own limiting mindset belief when it comes to that. And so use the power of social media, or, I mean, like you were saying about Kelly, she's really great at writing. So whether it's writing or video, or podcasting, or, you know, there's so many different outlets out there. Find the one that works for you. And what's great is whenever you are trying to find a sponsor to get that funding, you want to make sure that the outlet that you do pick, and you don't have to be on every single platform that's out there, but whichever one you do pick, make sure that it does fit the one with your sponsor and what goals they are trying to accomplish, because it's just going to make it so much easier for both of you to continue on that partnership in the long run. And so yeah, I mean, social media, it's so easy. You don't have to have the big polished cinematic movies like what Corey knocks out. I mean, those look amazing. I mean,
if you can do it, do it. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Like, you don't have to do it. And what's great about with social media is that authenticity and being vulnerable is always going to be the best content out there. You can just do a simple, like, 2 to 5 minute video of just you talking to the camera in your crazy little basement about what you're doing to prepare for your next race, and people are going to eat it up. It doesn't have to be a very edited, put together thing. Just as long as you're out there, like putting yourself out there and talking, sharing your story, you are going to increase your brand value every single day.
And part of your story now includes being a parent, which we talked about. All of us on this show are parents, and balancing the time commitment, all the things we just talked about, of what it takes to go NHRA sportsman racing, then all the marketing and running a business like you talked about. Then you've got parenting. It's hard to juggle all that. So how have you seen your approach to all of this as far as time management, and even maybe your audience? How have you tailored some of your content now that you are a parent, kind of seeing things from a different perspective? What's that done to your overall approach?
Yeah, things have totally changed for me over here. So I still go into the office 5 days a week and drop Henry off at daycare 3 days a week. So the other days he is with me, and I'll tell you what, it is nearly impossible to get any work done. He's a toddler right now, and he does not listen when I say no. He just wants to get into everything and mess everything up. And so it's been hard to actually get projects done. And I've got a lot of big projects on my plate right now that I really need to finish. So thankfully my mom and dad help out watching Henry, and my husband whenever he's not working. But yeah,
just wait till sports start. And, and yeah. I mean, it gets really crazy.
Yes, that's why we decided we're just gonna have the one, and that's it for us, because like we literally cannot fit any more time in if we had a second one.
It's hard, man. Like we're going through that. Alicia this morning, my wife, she was really adamant. This is no secret to anybody that knows me very well, but I'm like a little last minute where it's like, I'm going to go to Gainesville tomorrow.
All the secrets
right?
coming out today.
Yeah. So anyways, but she was pressing me like, hey, let's pick the races, like get all these schedules out and let's pick the races you want to go to. Let's put it on paper. Let's book the flights. Like let's not decide the day before that we're going to go. And I was sitting with her and I go, man, and this is hard for me to talk about, but it's like, I'm not going to go to any of these. Like I look at it like my kids are older. Like, so my son just turned 15 and I thought to myself, like, man, this is like probably, I've got 3 summers left with him, you know, where he like legally has to like live under my roof. Like he may stay there till he's 45. You know, hope not, but I'm going, I don't want to, I mean, looking at my life and like my experience, I'm like, hey man, I'm not going to spend every weekend gone. I'm just not going to do it. Like I recognize that. And for me, it's exciting and it's kind of cool to see someone like you, Megan, that is making it work for her, you know, like, cause what would be sad is to see you have to choose, like to see you completely walk away from the sport of drag racing because you've got a family to focus on. And that's one of the amazing things about this deal we do is that there are events and sanctions and series and all these things. Like you can kind of get in where you fit in. Like you can go compete for a world championship. You can go compete at a high level with real deal racers, but you've got like 4 races this year in Chris Graves' Nitro Chaos thing. I mean, and maybe that's not enough for the person next door to you, right? Maybe they want to race more than that. But my point is just that there's a lot of ways to kind of make this sport work for you, especially in this season of your life. Like because I know that in 3 years when Max has grown up and gone off to college, I'm going to every race. But there's an opportunity cost associated with it right now where it's like, okay, I'm going to go to the race, but I'm going to miss this time with my kids. You know, I think it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, just to be honest with you right now, growing up, my parents were never there. I mean, my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, my friends' parents, they raised us. My parents were off running NHRA every chance they got. And that was even before we had 2 cars on our team and rental drivers coming in. It was just my dad wanting to go and chase points and run NHRA Top Alcohol Dragster. He's been racing for, 45 years now. So I grew up at the racetrack. And then, you know, when I was in school, it was, hey, you know, grandma and grandpa would watch us this weekend. And then next weekend, this person's going to watch us. And then it's like, yeah. And so they missed out on a lot. You know, my sister and I feel like there was some things we missed out on. And for us, we did junior dragsters and absolutely loved it. No regrets. But we couldn't do other sports because of that, because that was our commitment. And so, you know, I know like when we were in high school, my sister really loved softball and she tried out for the team. She made it on JV, but she really wanted to commit to that because that was something that she also grew a love for, but could never practice or have the time for it because of racing. And so there are so many sacrifices that you have to make because of it. And whenever I decided to get pregnant, I told myself, I don't want to turn into my parents. I don't want to sacrifice my family time to go race. I love racing, but to me, that's not more important. I missed out on a lot of those special moments that normal kids have. And, so whenever I'm raising Henry, I want to make sure that I always put him first. And no matter what sports or activities he wants to do, I want to make sure I'm going to be there for him. And, you know, try not to turn into a workaholic like my dad is. And I do see myself going down that path, though. And so this year I'm really taking a step back. When I decided to return to racing and just do the 4 races, I thought it's 4 races. It's not going to take up that much time. And now I've realized I've got all these ideas and all these projects I want to do. And I've put in so much time just to get to this point, I haven't even done the first race yet. And I've already have done, spent a lot of money on marketing, spent so much time working on stuff. And I'm just like, okay, wait. I need to like reel back in and be like, okay, I need to like look at what is my purpose again with this. I'm coming back to drag racing just to have fun. That's it. Doing all the marketing, the sponsorship stuff, the social media stuff. I love all of that. And I love getting to help out other teams do the same thing. But to me, I am in a different season of my life right now where my focus needs to be at home and with the family. Whereas, like you said, the guy next door might be in a different season where he wants to go to all 17 plus races and do all that. And that's great. I did that. I loved it. But for me, that's just not what I need to do right now.
I think
it's so funny. I remember my dad grabbed me by my shoulders. Real quick. My dad I vividly remember this moment outside of what's the name of the football field in Kirksville, whatever. I remember him grabbing me by the shoulders. It was after a football game. And he goes, yes, thank you. Spanhauer Field, right? Spanhauer.
Yep.
Whatever. He grabbed me by the shoulders. It was after a game. And he goes, listen, Wes, we can keep jacking around with this football shit. That's fine if that's what you want to do. Or we can go drag racing, but we can't do both. So you're going to have to make a decision. And I'm like, well, it's like 8:30 on a Thursday, JV football. I'm like, I don't know that I'm prepared to make this decision, Dad. You know what I mean? But it was like, but we made the decision, and the decision was to go drag racing. Because it is.
I mean that story you told, Matt, or the way you portrayed it, I can relate to that. Wes can. Anybody that kind of grew up in drag racing, had a parent in it. And I think things have changed too in our time, as far as where we are in the world and the expectations of parents.
That's
to where it's more similar to what you're describing now versus back then. It was just, I'm going to work, I'm going racing, maybe mom's at home and taking care of the kids or grandma, whatever. And that's just the way it was. And so things have changed. And so it's interesting to hear you say that. And I think that a lot of people, a lot of families in drag racing can relate to that.
There's more activities now too. And even in sports, where we used to play 6 games or something in the summertime, now there's traveling sports and you feel like that your kid's behind if you don't enter them in that. But then you're chasing them all over the state or whatever and hotels. And I mean, it's just everything compounds. But I do think like during COVID, there's a flip side. We always talk about that during COVID, people couldn't wait to get back out. And that's why we're seeing these tracks just packed out. Right. And everybody's ready to go racing. But they're also on the flip side of that, everybody got used to staying at home and spending time with their family and doing things, that they don't normally do. And I think that a lot of people after that have wanted to keep that, I mean, we're in a time now where everybody wants to work from home. That a lot of people didn't want to go back to work. A lot of people didn't go back to work, evidently. You can't get a cheeseburger, or a salad.
True.
Yeah.
But no, I can't get over how many Zoom calls I have with people these days. Everybody's working from home. It's like a common, I agree, JT, and I hadn't thought about that because while I had a conversation in the lobby of WeWork a minute ago with a guy who said, I think I was talking about how we've been lucky, like this sport, drag racing, and I want to talk to you about this, Megan, is the sellout after big turnout and car counts are up and fan turnouts up. Everything seems abundantly, everything seems abundant. And we were discussing that we feel like that's a result of people being caged up for several years. Like everybody can't wait to get out. But to JT's point, there's a flip side to that where everybody got to spend all this, I don't know if it was all quality, but like an abundance of time with their family, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know what? I kind of liked that. I kind of liked having dinner together multiple nights a week. I kind of liked that type of thing. So it is really interesting. I want to ask you, and we've had you for a long time, and I really appreciate you being so generous with your time, Megan, but there's a handful of things in your endeavors here lately. Are you feeling, or do you have conversation? Do you sense a high tide right now in the sport of drag racing? Like we get back-to-back sellouts at Gainesville and the Phoenix race. I think a very significant crowd at the Winter Nationals. Our race was well attended. Donald Long's races were well attended. all these things. It seems like this is feels like a moment. Are you sensing that? Are you having that conversation with people? Like, is that something that you believe in as well?
Yeah, I think so too. And even thinking back, the end of last year, was it Reading? I think they had sold out crowd there too. So yeah, definitely. I mean, for me this year, I am not planning on attending any NHRA races other than Topeka, just because that one's home for us. It's just an hour away here. But I do, whenever, I like to see those posts like what you post on Drag Illustrated or on NHRA, where you have that that drone shot where you show like the parking lot, or you show like the stands full. Like, that's awesome, and I love seeing that, because I know when I race, it's such a cool feeling when you're inside the dragster. You can't see a whole lot like out of the sides of the roll cage, but you can see the stands right in front of you, and there is a mood shift with everybody when the stands are empty versus when they're full or semi-full. And so, I mean, yes, I love it. And the only race I have been to this year in person was the Funny Car Chaos Classic in Dallas, where Julie ran our funny car. And yeah, there was tons of people there. I mean, they had 50 funny car entries there. Like, that's crazy. And so I definitely think there is a new wave coming, even with this like newer generation into drag racing too, because I think that's kind of been one of our biggest hurdles, is whenever you see the spectators, it's typically, grandparents and dads, and might have their little ones with them. And so it's like, okay, how can we get the teenagers and the young 20-year-olds to come out to the races? So I think we're kind of on that shift right now, kind of going into that phase. And so that's, again, one of the things where it comes to with media, social media, marketing efforts, trying to reach those younger demographics and getting them out to the track and showing them, hey, there's programs like the junior drag racing, there's the NHRA Yes program, there's where you can take your daily driver and go to your drag strip for just a test and tune night on Friday night and go out and race your buddies and see who's the faster one there. Like, I think we're tapping into that. And so yeah, I mean, I love seeing that type of stuff.
I'm very excited about it. Last thing I want to talk about, and this is, we've got a short window here. We're almost out of time with you, Megan, but one of the things that we talked about discussing with you early in the show, and I think this will be kind of a good closing conversation, is as someone who did, like, I would say, go out on top, right? Like, you retired early. There were a lot of people. I mean, we saw it on social media, like, what the hell? She's win 2 world championships. And now she's done. Oh my God. I'm just curious, like, what's your take on retiring early and going out on top versus sticking it out for eons and eons? Because one of the big storyline in the sport of drag racing right now is we're like a week removed or whatever from the NHRA event in Pomona, California, where John Force had like an unexpected back-to-back crossing the center line ordeal. And I've had hundreds of messages about John Force getting ready to turn 74 years old. What does he have to prove? Like, is he behind the car? Like, there's all these conversations going on. And I'm just curious, like, as someone who did choose to bow out early, what do you make of, like, John Force? This guy is without question the greatest of all time. I think he is the GOAT of all GOATs when it comes to drag racing. And that's no disrespect to anybody else that, the innovators and the big thinkers, but early on. But if you look at longevity and contribution to the sport, my goodness, John Force is the man. But it's almost he's a month away from turning 74 years old. What do you make of him, like, still being out there? Like, is there a time to say, like, hey man, what else do you have to prove?
Yes, I think so. And so when I think about that, I mean, what comes to mind first is he's been, so amazing for our sport. If you talk to anybody that has never been to a drag race before, they have heard of John Force at least once in their life, so they can correlate those two together. But personally, I am kind of thinking, like, okay, what else is there to prove? So for me, like, I kind of think about it with my dad. And so he's turning 65 this year. And we're like, okay, Dad, are you going to retire? Like, what's your long-term plan with this racing? So he has the Meyer Truck Center, his business, and then he has racing, which the racing was started first. But now that's become his priority. He spends very little time at the truck center. And so now it's like racing is treated as your business. You know, this is your hobby. This is 100% takes up of my dad's life. He literally has no hobbies. He's only focuses on drag racing. And we're like, okay, what's like, are you going to retire? Like, what's your long-term plan? Like, if you do retire, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to take up fishing, or like, do you want to travel the world? Like, what do you want to do? And so we're kind of having those conversations now. And, you know, my sister and I have kind of made it clear that we don't really want to take over the family business. I'm very heavily involved in both businesses on the day-to-day basis, but for me, I don't want that to be my long-term plan. And so for me, I want to keep racing as a hobby. The fact that I am able to earn an income with it through sponsorships is great. But you know, that's something else. And so I don't know. I kind of see both sides of it. I see, you know, the marketing side of it, how it's great to, you know, have those headlines, have John Forrest still out there, you know, still doing good on the track, and, you know, either winning or crashing, like you said in the very beginning. And then I also see the personal side of it, and it's like, you know,
that could be his family time too. You know, like, you know, that he gets to go and hang out with his friends and his family, and
yeah,
you know, I mean, so. I mean, that'd be a tough one too, you know, when you think of it that way as well. Like, I've got the money, I've got the sponsors, you know, let's keep going, as long as I can keep going, right? I don't know.
And like you said, you're describing your dad, and it's like you're describing my dad, or any drag racing dad, or John Force. And it's, these guys devote everything to it. It's all they know. They have no hobbies. They've, you know, thrown everything else, I guess you could say, in their life to the back burner so that they could be successful in drag racing. So when they retire, what is left? What are they going to do? And how are they going to enjoy that time after they've retired? And I don't think this is exclusive to drag racing. I think it's exclusive to all high level pro sports. We see guys, Tom Brady comes to mind. You can name them a ton of NFL, NBA athletes that have nothing left to prove, and they're the GOAT, and they're the best. They've got all the records, but they keep coming back, and then they retire and unretire, the whole thing. I think it's because they retire, and then 3 months later they realize they're bored and miss the camaraderie. They miss the whole grind of it, and it's all they know. So I think we're at that point right now with John. But like you said, he's given so much and devoted so much to the sport that there's almost maybe a pressure that he feels from the sport itself, or from NHRA, to keep doing this, because he still holds kind of the candle. You know, he's the torchbearer for drag racing. So it's definitely interesting, and we'll see where it goes for the rest of the year. I think that maybe the year's just gotten off to a rough start for him, and we'll see if this kind of pattern continues, and then maybe we'll continue to have a more serious discussion about this, or if he goes on and wins a championship this year or something and silences all the critics.
Because here's the thing, and I was thinking about that as I was watching the Masters golf tournament this past weekend. They made a big deal. Like, there was two guys that were in their early 60s, like 62 or 63, that made the cut. And it was like, these are the two oldest guys that have ever made the cut. And I thought, you know what, that does speak to somebody. Like, and that is potentially a strong suit for our sport. Like, the one thing I always had people tell me about golf my whole life was play golf because you can play it for your whole life. And drag racing, kind of the same song and dance works here. Like, hey man, go drag racing because you can drag race your entire life. And so part of me thinks like, oh, this is a strong suit. This is something we should promote, right? We're not too far removed from the Greek, right? Chris Karamesini's being, no one knows how old he is, right? 400 years old, still drag racing, still going 300 miles per hour. Like, but there also is a part of me that says like, we also need, like, it's an extreme sport. Like, so I also don't know how valuable it is.
You can ride a golf cart off into a lake and probably be okay. You know, I mean, but, but no, yeah. But you're right. I mean, and we joke around about that with golf, is that, you know, golf isn't really about golf. It's about going to the course, hanging out with your buddies, slamming some beers, hitting some bombs. I mean, it's what it's
It
about,
really
right?
is.
Jaeger bombs.
Often drag racing
Jaeger
are
bombs,
similar.
Vegas
in a lot of ways.
bombs, Jaeger's, fire bombs. I mean, there's all kinds of bombs you can take.
There's all kind of bombs.
And
No,
it
it's
helps
just a
you- it helps
very
the game, too.
interesting conversation, in my opinion. It's I see Jim Parks, Tony Pedregon had a really good take on the Force Todd incident on the NHRA Insider podcast. I listened to that myself, and I thought I was actually real quick. I want to have one thing on record. Like, kudos to Tony Pedregon for having like the balls to say some of the stuff that he did, because I think our sport needs more of that, like hot takes and real opinion. And I was really, really, really impressed with it. But no, anyways, Megan, hey, thank you so much. What a chat, right? I mean, anybody that's looking to get a sponsor in the sport of drag racing probably better watch this episode. We're so excited for you. So before we cut you loose, immediate plans. Where are we going to see you at the racetrack next? And how can we follow you in this whole journey of yours?
Yeah, so my first race coming up at the end of the month, April 28th and 29th, I will be at Edgewater in Cincinnati, and it's going to be my first time ever racing there. I've never been to that track before, so just another reason to try a new series and get to go race at a new facility. And so one thing I do want to add is that is the same weekend as the Charlotte 4-Wide Nationals, which everybody knows is my favorite race. And so my dad is going to be at Charlotte running Julie and Hunter to try to continue our success there at Charlotte. And so I'm going to be flying solo at Cincinnati. We're going to be having my sister come in to be my crew chief, which has always been a dream of ours ever since we were little girls. Is we always wanted Rachel to be the crew chief and me to be the driver. So now we finally get to have this dream come to fruition. So that's coming up end of the month. And then Rachel is going to get her chance to drive. She her first race is going to be at Eddyville, which is going to be on Memorial Day weekend for the combined Nitro Chaos with Funny Car Chaos race, the first time they're ever bringing the two together. So we will be there with me and Rachel in the dragsters and Julie in the Funny Car there. So all three girls are going to be driving with all three of our cars. So it's going to be really awesome having all that there. So if you guys are local to Cincinnati or Iowa, please come out, come say hi. And if you are a racer and you need help with social media, sponsorship, marketing, all that stuff, I do have a brand new website. So my website is meganmeyerracing.com. If you go to that, you'll go to my new racing website, which came out on Monday when I did the big reveal with the car. And then all of my blogs, my courses, services, all of that now is over on motorsportsmarketingtips.com. So new business, new brands that I am starting up this year. So in the future, you guys will see me starting to promote that. So yeah, and then you can follow me social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and now I am on YouTube for the first time, Megan Meyer Racing. And like I said earlier, I will be documenting and coming out with vlogs for each of my races this year to kind of give fans and the people that can't come out to Nitro Chaos races or that don't watch it on TV, which by the way, it is aired on Flow Racing for the live stream all day, each day. But we are going to be doing a lot of dialogue between me and the crew guys and my crew chiefs, either that's Rachel or my dad. And so really kind of showing you what you don't ever get to see at the drag strip. So really excited for all that.
Holy moly. Like now I have plans of going to the 4-Wides myself, but I'm kind of thinking I want to see the Megan Meyer, Rachel Meyer duo in act. What a moment. That is an incredible story. We need to talk more about that because that's what a cool thing to have happen. Your sister serve as your crew chief. What a moment. I think that will be historic. Congratulations, Megan. We're going to be following along. You know that. The Eddyville race sounds like a barn burner. So we look forward to seeing you. What day is it?
It's Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Oh,
Mark
Eddyville.
it down. Old Eddyville, my old stomping grounds. I always tell the story. My first time I ever met your dad, I mean, I knew who your dad was, but the first time we ever talked on the phone was me booking him in for a match race on Memorial Day in 2005. It's crazy to think almost 20 years ago, I paid your dad to come in and make. Your dad is the best match race investment in the history of the known universe, because homeboy will come in and make 72 runs. Like, hey, Randy, I need you to make 3. Can we make 30? Like, yeah, please do. This dude was literally like, I was running him in between pairs of bracket cars. Like, I'd run 6 bracket cars, 6 pairs of bracket cars, and be like, hey, we're ready. Can we come back up? Make a rip? I'm like, yes, you can. You can run your A fuel dragster. You can run mid 3s here at Eddyville as much as you would like. So anyways, hey, thanks, Megan. Best of luck. Tell your pops hello, and we'll see you soon.
Yes. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate having me back on.
Yep,
no problem.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right, guys. I want to remind each and every one of you that the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of a slew of companies: Type A Motorsports, Stroud Safety, Redline Synthetic Oils, Flow Racing, and Racers Club. We have a new little thing that we're going to do this afternoon that I'm excited about. We've got some killer questions here in the comments already, but we're going to give away a Lincoln Electric welding mask to whoever we think gives us the best question. These things are about $300. They're badass. We've got a slew of them from our pals, Lon, and everybody at Lincoln Electric. And so we're going to pick the best question here in the next 30 minutes or so, and we're going to give the best question, the person who asked the best question, a $300 or $400, whatever. I don't know what the retail price is. I'm sorry. Lincoln Electric welding mask. Mike, JT, what a deal, right? That was a great interview. I think that was a great, not even an interview. That was just a conversation. That was the whole idea.
That was good.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on. She was talking about juggling everything and her schedule and being busy and kind of like having to pull back from a lot of the stuff. But man, all the stuff she rattled off right there at the end was enough to make me tired just thinking about it.
No shit, man. Holy moly. So hey, if anybody's got a question, throw it in here. Let's go up. One of the ones that I saw earlier was about have we seen Kai Kelly's new No Prep Kings car? Cool Truckin' asked this on YouTube. It's bad to the bone. Have you guys seen this thing? Buick Regal with a blower motor in it?
Let me see if I can grab a picture of it real quick here. Yeah.
What do you make of it? Like, because I think this is a fun question to ask, because it defies the belief. It supports our belief that the car is not the star, because theoretically or conceptually, Kai Kelly drives a 3rd-gen Camaro. Like, he's the IROC guy,
but
right?
he's kind of branched out from Camaro. That. Well, he's had the late model Camaro, and then now he's got this. But he's kind of got a common theme. It's all murdered out. Everything, all black. Even I think the front windshield is black. I don't know how he's gonna stick his head out the window or something to see. I always wonder how that works, but everything's black on it. And that's kind of like when you see something roll up and it's pure black, everything on it, it's probably a Kai Kelly car. And you have to, not only Kai, but a lot of these guys, unique cars, unique bodies, unique vehicles. I mean, they've just got them in spades in No Prep Kings. And this is just another one to add to it. So kudos to Kai and to No Prep Kings for kind of keeping it alive as far as the, diversity and body styles and everyone having something unique instead of 2021 Camaros.
For me, the big takeaway was like, holy moly, like you'd heard rumblings all off season that he was making the switch from nitrous to a blower, but it does seem unusual, right? Like it does.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. It's for me, it's still crazy to think about Kai Kelly driving something with a screw blown Hemi in it. Right. Like, and it's a little bittersweet for me personally. Mike, I know it's no secret that you and I are like the nitrous guys here, but it is a little bittersweet. I'm going, and I can't argue with the decision, but it is a little bittersweet because we haven't talked enough about how close to winning a championship he has been the last few seasons.
And I think he feels like that this is what he's got to do to push him over the hump. And a lot of the screw blown cars were running really well there at the end of the year. So and then there's the whole drama with Pat and with everything going on there. And I think he thought it was time to make this change. So, but interesting to me though, is the car builder. I think it's Wizard Race Cars. It's someone I honestly have not heard of, and that I think is based right there near him in Louisiana. I don't know. I don't know if you guys.
I have heard of them.
Yeah,
I have heard of them. But I do think that like a lot of, if you look back through the history of drag racing,
he's a Jeffers guy. He has been. So he's kind of branching out and going to different car builders, and for whatever reason.
There's two conversations to have about that. Like, there's one conversation is that these are opportunistic deals. Like, let's just be honest, right?
For sure.
Like, it's opportunistic where it's like, hey, I'm a celebrity. Let me race your car, cut me a deal, do me a freebie, whatever. And I don't, no shame, right there. That's exactly what you should be doing. But my point is more so that this is a good decision typically, because if you think back about it, throughout the course of drag racing, the chassis builders have always been like married to the success of a single racer in a popular endeavor, right? Like, if you go back, I mean, you could have this conversation with, and we probably should mention, the sport of drag racing lost an icon last week in Jerry Bickel, someone who watched this show almost every week. I've known Jerry, and we will talk about this, and I would like to talk about this, and we actually just got a question here, so we definitely need to talk about the passing of Jerry Bickel here. But I've known Jerry for a long time, but I think whether it's Jerry Bickel you're talking about, Rick Jones, Tim McCamus, Tommy Mooney, almost all of these chassis builders, their success has been kind of directly correlated to the success of an individual racer in a popular segment of drag racing, right?
So
I think that
there and then branched out.
Started there and then branched out. So I mean, kudos to the folks at Wizard Race Cars. Like, I don't know these people personally, but they clearly saw an opportunity to associate themselves with somebody who's a threat, a contender
to them.
Local,
And JRC Photos, he's saying that Wizard also built the Pro Mod hearse, and I think if we're talking about the same car, he's talking about that Cadillac, the black one with the purple that we see racing in Orlando back in the World Street days. That's what's coming to mind. So maybe, known for unique builds like this. I always hate using the term builds. I feel like I'm on Motor Trend or something all of a sudden, but it's maybe they're known for that kind of stuff. So really cool. It'll be interesting to see, man. I think there's more changes coming down the pike for No Prep Kings. I don't know how much is out there yet, but I think they've got some stuff up their sleeves this year to keep that series top of mind, keep it fresh. I mean, because we talk about this a lot. We're like, to me, way past where I thought this deal was going to peak and where I thought we would start to see the decline. And so here, was it year 6? Are we now with No Prep Kings?
Yeah,
maybe even longer than that, doing some
season
stuff
6
to keep it fresh. Season 6. So
season 6 for sure.
And we've seen some rule changes in that series, doing the stuff they need to do to try to keep it competitive, keep parity, and keep interest in the show and in the racing. So I'm excited for it.
I don't know. The rumblings are that there's like I'm sorry. Like the team concept for No Prep Kings. Not sure how I feel about that. Like, that's clearly the path they're going. But yeah, we got another question here.
As a younger drag racing fan myself, what do you think could be done to bring the younger generation into drag racing, especially since the basics are made for short attention spans?
I'll go first. Man, I don't know that attention span. This is something that has bothered me for a long time.
Kids do, though. I mean, like, they've got
but we all do. And I think that like we all have a short attention span, and we talk about it. I mean, everything evolve or die. Everything we do, it has to evolve. I mean, I think about Drag Illustrated magazine. Mike can attest to this. We used to do these 5,000 word feature stories that were 15 pages long. And we recognized over the course of time that, like, man, people don't have the attention span for that stuff anymore. And we've got to make more bite-sized content. And we've got to do stuff that's a little bit more easily digestible. And I also don't know that attention span or how long our sport lasts really has anything to do with anything, right?
Well,
because I look at
it's the on track portion of it does last a very short period of time, but drag racing is 95% in the pits and all the other stuff that goes into it, and like 5% on track. So while you're thinking of it as a short attention span thing, it's really not. It's like actually a very long attention span that it takes to understand and comprehend and appreciate drag racing. versus just what you see on the track. So I think,
because I mean, you think about the attention span that's required to. No, think about the attention span that's required to consume an entire drag race, right?
Yeah, that's what
holy moly. Yeah. I mean, you've got to be there, 2-3 days. And if you only show up on elimination day, even at the best run events in the world, like an NHRA national event, you're there at 11 a.m. Best case scenario, you're leaving at 4 or 5. That is a long, long day. I think if we have to have a conversation about what we can do, there's a lot of things, but these are the 3 things that I've been saying for decades. And these are just, I don't know that this is just my personal opinion, is that I think we have to have great toys. We have to get a hook in them early. I think that's something that Monster Jam has done exceptionally well. Like, I'm putting a monster truck in the hands of my newborn child. Like, you can't get a 1/64 scale monster truck in the hands of your kid quick enough. There's like a whole section of them at your local Walmart or Target or wherever you shop. Better toys. I think we're making huge moves in the video game market. NHRA rolled out a video game last year. We've obviously got No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, which I would argue is the best drag racing video game of all time, regardless of platform. I mean, that is a huge step. And I think just improving our live event experience, as well as like reality TV shows. Like every sport, it would seem, that's really thriving in this day and age or experiencing some sort of explosive growth, they've got a reality TV show. Like, they've got shoulder programming that is supporting the race coverage. Like, of course, they're going to broadcast what happens at the race. Of obviously, it should go without saying, but it's that additional behind the scenes things that we were just talking about with Meyer that I think really get people invested. And I experienced it perhaps with the Masters this weekend, right?
I think that people, I mean, when in any sport anymore, everybody is so plugged in. You see everything behind the scenes anymore. So I think that people expect that, so by the NHRA not doing it, or a lot of their drivers not doing it, I think that's bad, because they are so plugged in anymore. And we're plugged into like the top stars of the NFL, the NBA, MLB, so we're missing the boat here on not having something like that.
Well, I mean, look at this deal with the Bennett kid that was like the amateur from Texas A&M that entered the Masters tournament this past weekend, forfeited, or like was ineligible to win like $250,000 in prize money. I mean, his dad gets dementia, and they tell this story on TV, and he's got a tattoo on his wrist of the note that his dad gave him, or what. I mean, and all of a sudden, like, I couldn't believe it. My wife this morning at breakfast, like, she's telling me, like, hey, did you know that Bennett kid, the one whose dad has dementia? I mean, she knows the whole deal of it, doesn't know shit about golf or whatever, like, knows nothing about like what happened this past weekend, but she knows that dude's story. And she was like horrified that he wasn't going to get that money. But it just goes to show you that that is something, to your point, JT, that we're like lacking as a sport in a big way. The coverage is great. The Fox numbers are through the roof. We saw, I think, the viewership at the NHRA Gator Nationals earlier this year were like the highest ever. All of that is well and good, but we are massively lacking that storytelling component where we get, because most people are so far removed from drag racing or going 300 miles per hour, driving one of these cars, that we have to, as a sport, at the highest levels, start telling these. A
quick backstory isn't going to probably do it.
That's 100% what MPK is doing that we're not. Right. We know these guys' girlfriends. We know their father-in-law. We know the drama that's happening. Like, we know all about them, and we learn about them through all that stuff.
Well, it takes,
and we get invested in the outcome.
It takes participation from the competitor and from the
Exactly.
participant.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm telling you, these guys, hey, you have to incentivize it almost. Like, you go to one of these racers that are busy and are kind of a one-man show or whatever. You tell them, hey, we need you to come sit down for 2 hours and do this interview, like what it probably took to do that Sam Bennett interview to get all that story out on the Masters that you're referring to. They're gonna be like, nah, man, I got an awning to put up. I gotta get this deal. I was gonna change the rear end in this thing when I got it set up. And they're not willing participants. And I mean, I know a lot of people may not want to hear that, or maybe these guys understand it and kind of know that they're preventing themselves, because if NHRA or one of these other series rolled that out, the first pit they go to, they're going to get told, nah, man, I ain't got time for that. But in No Prep Kings, that when you sign up for that or you become one of the stars there, you know that your entire day, like we saw it at PRI, how the No Prep Kings basically booked all of their stars for the entire trade show. Every 30 minutes or an hour, they were doing something, doing a press conference, involved in some kind of presentation. There was no downtime. And so, you know, when you sign up for this deal, the payoff's going to be big. You're going to become a celebrity. It's going to lead to financial, success, but it's going to take all the commitment you've got as far as time to do these extracurricular things that are outside the racetrack. And that's totally different than when someone shows up to a PDRA race, to an NHRA race, to an NMCA race. They're not expecting that. So that's where we've got to change that.
Yep. I mean, if you look at that, like Jim Parks is saying, I think more focus into the mechanical aspects. And like, to be honest, I actually think I disagree, because I feel like the people who care about how a clutch works in a Top Fuel drag, they're watching no matter what. They're
working on a clutch.
Yeah, they're working on one, right? So like, those aren't the people we have to go after. Like, if we want our sport to grow, we have to go after the casuals, the people that maybe have a passing interest that'll never rebuild the engine in their car, that doesn't change their own oil. Like that's a great demo, but we already have that demo sewed up for the most part.
Oh yeah.
If we're going to get new people, we've got to use storytelling components. We've got to introduce these folks to the characters, because I think if people got to know more of the people that exist I look at our sport compared to like NHRA, like let's just use Top Fuel and Funny Car. I compare the people and the personalities that we have. Like, if I had to pick which one I would rather have, the personalities that exist in F1 or the personalities that exist in Top Fuel and Funny Car, I'm taking Top Fuel and Funny Car 100 times out of 100. Like, I really am. Like, these
are understanding better too.
Yeah, you can understand them. They speak English, but really, these are like relatable people that have opinions and have personalities. And I'm picking them 9 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100 is what I said. And I stand by it. But those folks are not given that opportunity because, like you said, Mike, I think that they're not properly incentivized.
They're not.
Because there was a comment here that, like, in NHRA's documentary that was announced last year, only Tony Stewart Racing and Toyota drivers opted to be in it. And I think that says a lot. I do too, because unfortunately the NHRA is they've not done a great job of fostering that goodwill that is required. Like, if you compare and contrast, I saw another comment that talked about how pretty much every No Prep Kings personality racer has a YouTube channel, is active on social media, because they understand that's a prerequisite. They understand that is a prerequisite to be included in that show or to ever have any opportunity to move up the rankings or be more of a central figure. They have to have those things. Whereas on the NHRA side of the coin, not at all the case. Like, there's, these are people, the NHRA has allowed themselves to be reliant on the goodwill of like a handful of folks, and they've not done anything. And like Kai Kelly, in my opinion, and I don't know the finances of it, but I know that he is very well compensated for appearing at 15, 16, however many races they're going to have. And he's making money. So he's obviously he's incentivized to create that content and, to pull back the veil and let people in. But I don't think that really exists for anyone in pro drag racing in the NHRA. But I don't think it would take appearance money. Like, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat.
I think you see
guaranteed TV time, tickets, whatever. Find a way.
I think you see the people that are doing it are usually the people that are hungry or are trying to get more.
And Kai had to do that.
Like
to
a
get there.
Hungry Indian Huntsharder. I mean, you need it, you're going to go get it. And I think that the people that we see that are promoting themselves and turning the camera around or doing the extra stuff that needs to be done are those people that get it to an extent. Like, they know that I need money if I want to keep racing for a living, so I'm gonna have to do this extra shit where we've talked about before also that you know, there's a lot of money in drag racing where you can kind of pay to play.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of NHRA is dominated by that in a lot of ways, but a lot of those people that we're talking about had to do those things in that self-promotion to get where they are today. Like a Kai Kelly, like a Ryan Martin, all these people had to do these things to get to that point. And it's a little bit different in NHRA. And it also makes me think about the marketing. I always think about even the heyday, like the 80s and 90s, all marketing and commercials and advertisements you see surrounding NHRA drag racing seem to speak to the people they know are already there. It's auto parts, it's beer,
track tested, or
it's a lot of the stuff that they know they're selling this to the people that are already there. It's nothing about reaching a wider audience or a mainstream audience. And the people that have reached the mainstream audience, I think about John Force, I think about Ron Capps, I think about Leah, Antron Brown, are the personalities and the characters, or someone that has something unique about them, they themselves, not the car, that makes a mainstream marketer want to use them to reach a wider audience. Everything else is just a generic, you know, auto parts, oil, beer. I'm trying to think of some other stuff that appeals to that market. Wranglers. I mean, it's, if you think back to like the 80s and 90s. And so if we're ever going to get out of that, it's going to take the participation and the dedication by these people to develop a character. And I mean, like you said, Wes, would John Force have all these sponsors if he didn't have 16 world championships? He might not have the level of success he has now, but he would probably still be one of the more successful drag racers in history, just because
I truly
of his
believe
personality.
I truly believe it.
Next question.
Okay, go ahead.
Question. We're going to get a clock on this.
We got to pick a winner. Yeah.
No. Let's try this one here. So, Wes, do you have a goal to be behind the seat on the track someday?
Not really, you know, to be honest. Yeah, I do. I would love to. The example that I use all the time is that I don't think Andre the Giant would have ever been Andre the Giant, nor Hulk Hogan, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon. I want to be Vince McMahon. I want to be the circus master. I want to be the promoter. And it's not because I don't have racing aspirations or I don't get a thrill out of going fast. Of course I do. But that's my next point. I am open to a cage match. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want it to be like, I don't know that I have personal aspirations of going out and competing for a world championship. I mean, I had an opportunity a month or two ago to drive Randy Meyer's A Fuel car. And I decide I do plan to pursue that. I got to run a race late last year in a 275 radial tire car, just playing around. Yeah, I want to race. But I really feel like I've been put on the planet to put on drag races and shine a light on the people that go drag racing each and every week. I feel like I've got a skill set that serves that. And I wouldn't.
We're not so sure, man.
But thank you. But I don't appreciate the support there. But I just don't
keep looking. I don't you'll find your calling one day.
I don't want my own racing goals or whatever to get in the way of that. Like, I feel I can be more valuable to the sport not racing because I know what happens. Like, I've been there. I've done it. People maybe don't realize it. Like, all I've ever done my entire life is drag race. Like, I mean, that's what we do. It's all I talk about. It's all I think about. It's my life. And I know what would happen. Like, Richard Freeman said, hey, why don't we get you your pro stock license or whatever? And I'm like, well, I know what happens. I know that I'm going to be hooked on the heroin that is NHRA pro stock racing and everything else. I'll be broke, destitute, and everything behind me in ashes, burning, smoldering, because I know what that's like. So I appreciate it, Gary, and I do intend to race. I would love to do some Vince McMahon, like I'll do a ladder match every once in a while, or I'll, run in and disrupt, somebody getting pinned and, help, elbow drop somebody. I'd love to be able to, if I die and I have not competed in an NHRA national event at a pro level, I will be disappointed. Like, if I don't get the opportunity to stage up a race car in high level competition, I will definitely be disappointed, and I will feel like I left something on the table. I would love to do that, but I also feel very strongly that I need to stay the course, and I want to see our sport grow. And that's like kind of how I get that's where the juice is for me personally, is seeing people buy tickets and seeing people care about this. Like I had this conversation with Frankie Taylor last week when he was telling me that he was like, he's a lower budget team and he can't buy the latest, greatest stuff. And I'm like, that's a fucking tragedy. And it is my goal to make sure that the Frankie Taylors of the world or whatnot are high profile people. Like if what I want to accomplish is I want Erica Enders to be as well known as Serena Williams. And I understand that there's a lot of delusion there for me. And I know I sound like a psychopath, but that's what keeps me up at night. Like I want drag racers to be famous. I don't think that anybody in this community gets their due. I see what happened at the Masters this weekend, and these guys show up with some golf clubs and whatever and compete for $15 million or whatever. And don't get me wrong. I'm like, it's all about eyeballs and exposure and how many people are watching them play that game. But I feel like our game has that potential. I really do. Like when I watch the Masters this weekend, and I know everybody's going to think I'm crazy, but the entire time I'm going, the World Series of Pro Mod can be that big. I guarantee it. Watch me. Like, and that's what I want. Like Mike mentioned earlier, a lot of parallels between drag racing and golf. I agree, man. Like, I think this sport is so incredible. Like, I think about men, women, young, old, every race, creed, color, every different, financial background. Like, I think about the cornucopia of humanity that is drag racing, right? And this group of people deserves better than they get. Like, it drives me crazy. And I know that if we all work together and we do these things we talk about, get better toys on shelves, like get better video games on people's TVs or whatever, and tell these stories, I know there's a brighter future for the sport of drag racing than what we're operating in currently. And I just want to dedicate every ounce of energy that I have to telling the stories of racers, because I know that it's not like, I'm not trying to like get my rocks off quick.
This is a yes or no. This is a yes or no question.
Shut up, JT.
This is just a short
shit off right now. But like I'm confident that we can achieve something significant, So
okay, so let's do one more, because the ones I see right here could go longer than that previous question. So let's do this one. What is it going to take for any Pro Mod drivers that didn't get an invitation to this past year's World Series of Pro Mod to get one next year?
I'm not going to say anything because you guys are assholes.
Yes.
Nope, go ahead.
No, I'm joking.
No, I'm mad now.
Man, are you mad?
No, not really. I'll talk more. No, I'm always red.
No. Well,
dude,
I got to show out, right? I mean,
yeah.
You know what I think?
Yeah,
And this is something I've been wanting to talk about. A lot of the stuff that we've
been talking about throughout this show, I thought we've talked about all this stuff. Had Megan on here, someone that's doing a lot of the things that I think it's going to take for these Pro Mod guys to reach this next level and stand out. It's not always what you're doing on the track. We got so many questions, so much, I guess, blowback, but questions, concerns, whatever. What is your criteria? How I won this many championships? I've been racing for 30 years. I raced this, whatever. And we talked about it leading up to World Series. It's not always just that. And I think that this episode of the show has actually done a great job sort of explaining how many of these other things. We just got done talking about the marketing and the mainstream marketing and what these guys are doing outside of the track as far as YouTube channels and exposure to reach a new audience. And to us, I mean, maybe it's asking too much of Pro Mod guys, which are largely Jim Park said it earlier here in the comments, that are largely businessmen that are funding their hobby of Pro Mod drag racing with that endeavor. So it leaves a limited amount of time to do this extra stuff. But that's what, to me, that's what we're looking for. And I think in 2023 and 2024, that's what sets you apart. from the rest of the pro mod field. It's not necessarily how many races you've won or how many championships you've gotten or how long you've been racing.
But if you do go out and kill it all season, I mean, you can't.
Your phone's probably going to ring, and I think there's one thing that I've talked about that I've wanted to talk about on this show that hasn't gotten talked about much is you also, man. Okay, so be a needle mover. I think what Mike's talking about is right. What I need for World Series of Pro Mod are people that are willing participants. And I know that sounds like a foregone conclusion, but like share the vision, understand what we're trying to do, recognize that it goes beyond on-track performance. It goes far beyond that. And I think if you're not bought in to the belief system that there is a brighter future out there for the sport of drag racing than we're currently operating in, you're probably not a good fit. If you're worried about where you're parking, if you're worried about what it pays to qualify, if you're worried about you don't get it, and that's okay. Not mad. Totally okay. But being a believer in what we're trying to do, I think is numero uno. Numero dos, which is very important, is repeatability, reliability, and trustworthiness. One of the things that I don't think we've talked about enough here on this show or anywhere in the world for that matter is the fact that we extended 61 invites to the World Series of Pro Mod. In all 61 of those invites, every invited driver showed up. I find that it shocked me.
And attempted qualifying.
Yeah, and attempted qualifying. To be honest, we invited 61 drivers, believing that roughly 10 of them, based on what we had seen historically, not because they're bad guys, not because of anything other than life, the world, things happen, right? I totally recognize that. We invited 61 people in hopes of having a guaranteed 50. We were shocked and humbled, and I'm still to this day, I think that's something that I can't quite wrap my head around. But what it is a result, it's proof that's 61 people that share the dream, man. That's 61 people that saw and see what we see. But beyond that, and this is something that I see a lot, like people that have their shit buttoned up, that take this stuff seriously, that aren't showing up to the track half-assed, aren't showing up to the track hoping that they'll button everything up when they get there. Real professionals. And it's super important because the reason we didn't have any pro modified crashes, the reason we didn't have any crazy pro modified oil downs is because we had the best racers in the world there. And if you want to get that call in 2023 to be a part of the 2024 World Series of Pro Mod and race for $100,000 at Bradenton Motorsports Park, I would encourage you to have a car that's going to go A to B. Right? And obviously mechanical things break, race cars break, all these things happen. And we're not psychopaths and we don't hold anyone to an impossible standard. But I really do think that is something that is not focused on enough, is having a program that's going to go down the track, having a car that's going to make the trip, having a team that's going to give you a car that's going to make the trip, being able to turn your car around in a tight time frame. I mean, we were turning and burning there in the semifinal and final round at the World Series of Pro Mod, and I don't mean any disrespect, but there are teams that I know, great guys, have done really well. Their stuff's fast, but they're not prepared for that moment, right? When you've got Lonnie Grimm or Gavin Carter or somebody at the end of your trailer beating on your door 33 minutes after you went through the finish line saying, hey man, we need you back up here. And that is a huge part of this. So yeah, that's in my opinion, if you're be a needle mover, be relevant, contribute, be an advocate for what we're trying to do. I point to Scott Palmer. I had this conversation with my dear friend Mark Beatty from Redline Synthetic Oils over the weekend. And happy Easter to everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. But Scott Palmer, this is a guy that knowingly knew going in that he wasn't going to, it was highly unlikely he was going to qualify number one. It was going to be a huge challenge for him to qualify for the field, make the cut, which is a phrase I'm going to adopt. He knew that was going to be an uphill battle, but that was a guy that was an advocate for us at every turn, helping sell tickets, helping push the brand and the event forward. And those are the type of people, if we're going to do something significant, it's not going to be Wes, Mike, and JT. Like, it's going to take an army of people singing our praises and sharing, spreading the gospel of drag racing, as I always say. So anyways, those are the type of people that I'm looking for. I do think as a group, Mike, JT, I think we've decided that we don't see this expanding beyond 64 cars anytime soon. The people that supported us in 2023 are going to have first right of refusal for the most part. There's some outliers and guys that I know that have, their attention is kind of, their focus is changing and whatnot. But anyways, I'm really excited for the next go around in this deal. And I know that's a really long way to explain it, JRC photos, but you got to tick a lot of boxes if you want to park at Bradenton the first week in March.
Let's bring Blake on and see who's going to win the
best
helmet.
Question. Win the Lincoln Electric.
Yep,
Shout out Lon Damon.
This is Blake.
This is Blake, our producer.
Hey, Blake.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, he's muted. He's a horrible producer.
You're muted.
Yeah, I was gonna say this might be the first time I'm actually on the show. So hi.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, man.
Yeah, welcome to the
Glad to have
show.
you.
Blake Fondell, video guru.
Yeah,
Extraordinary.
Show producer. Yeah. What was there one of these questions that you especially liked? Who do you want us to mail a Lincoln Electric welding helmet to?
Oh, I like this one. JT, your haircut looks good. He should get it.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Last minute change.
Hey, man, there you go. Right.
That's not a question. Phrase it as a question.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. How's this haircut? Let's do, I think for me, JRC Photos had the questions that got Wes fired up the most. Like he really started getting animated when he asked those questions. So
all right, there you have it. The winner is JRC Photos. Send us a DM with your address, and we're going to send you a welding helmet, courtesy of our friends at Lincoln Electric. Shout out to the whole team at Lincoln Electric. Support the sport of drag racing in a huge way. Support all motorsports in a huge way. Sponsor the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30. And support everything we do here, and are also a great group of people. So, anyways,
shoot us a video too of it when you get it.
Like, when you get it, let us know that
a beer
you
with it on or something. I don't know. Whatever
you've clearly got a camera, JRC Photos. So
Yeah.
send us a pic at the bare minimum. But there was like one question that we didn't answer, but I know we've got to go.
Well, let's wrap up the show. Let's touch back on something we talked about earlier, the passing of Jerry Bickel. I don't think that
thank you. That was
someone's influence could be or very few people, especially in Pro Mod and Door Slammer Racing, had the influence that Jerry Bickel had. You being from the same area, Wes, you had a special relationship with him. So we wanted to kind of give you a moment here to talk about Jerry, his influence, and remember him this week.
Well, thank you for that. And Jerry Bickel, Moscow Mills, Missouri. I vividly remember going down to Jerry's shop and dropping off the first issue of Drag Illustrated almost 20 years ago, and asking him to give it away to people, asking him to put it in any boxes that he shipped out, and him being willing to do it. I remember Jerry finally agreeing to buy an ad in the magazine. It took me years and years and years to convince him to do it. But we had him as a huge part of what we do here for a really, really long time. I've got some great friends there. Steve, Don Cross. I've known Don Cross, it seems like, my entire life. And just, there's a great group of people there. And to your point, Mike, I don't know that we can really overstate his impact, Jerry's impact on our sport. I think he introduced the notion of evolving from a chassis builder or a fabricator to a mail order outlet, right? He brought to light so many business practices, and his approach to marketing, and his approach to doing a catalog every year and turning that into an event. And he really has been a trailblazer, and that's in business practice and marketing. And we're like completely overlooking everything that he did from a fabrication standpoint. It can't be. I don't know that we can, like I said, I don't know there's enough time in the day or any day to adequately describe what Jerry Bickel meant to the sport of drag racing. I also saw him as somebody that was a friend to everybody. It really is an amazing thing that Jerry Bickel, the business that he built, the legacy that he created, I can't say enough about it. And it's an absolute tragedy to lose him. And I just hope that not everybody knows, and that Jerry had been in rehab for a back injury for a really long time. And I can only hope that Jerry's in a better place now. He's not in pain. He's comfortable. And man, it's his legacy will live on through his customers, through his team there in Moscow Mills, Missouri. I literally woke up Sunday morning, I think it was Easter morning, and I got an email from Jerry Bickel Race Cars trying to sell me an intercomp tire pressure gauge. And I thought, well, the wheels continue to turn. Mike, I want to bring you on for 2 seconds because there was a moment, there was a period of time when Jerry, about a decade, probably longer, where Jerry had an ad in every issue of Drag Illustrated. And people don't know this. Jerry fancied himself something of a graphic designer. Every ad that Jerry ran in Drag Illustrated magazine was a design that Jerry did himself. But there was a lot of nuances to that design. Mike, I'd love to hear you kind of expound on some of this because it's hilarious. This is a very obviously a sobering moment, but this is a lighthearted story that I want you people.
This is JT's favorite story. I told this story to our team internally this week, and JT gave me a hard time. But Jerry, he actually designed not only his ads, but his full catalog. I think he may have done his website as well. So he was into this stuff, but he was definitely old school. And I think he still used Quark Express, which anybody that's ever done graphic design, that's like the original publishing software. And then we've pretty much all moved to InDesign, which is what we do. Drag Illustrated is designed in Adobe InDesign, and most modern publications and desktop publishing software companies use InDesign. So, but Jerry would send his Quark files, which were like huge, like multi-gigabyte files. These dated back to before high-speed internet. So I think he would always send these files to publication. Even up until
a few years ago,
a couple of years ago, Jerry would send me a UPS red label, like reinforced box with packaging cushioning in it, containing 3 or 4 mini DVDs, not full-size DVDs that I may be able to stick into like a slot drive DVD player if I can find one. No, a mini DVD, like the ones that are like this big, that you have to put in a tray drive, which used to come in like every desktop.
Dude, laptops don't have DVD or CD-ROMs anymore, you know?
No. And so this is how you'd get Jerry's ads. And after a couple of years of this, I called Jerry and I said, hey, Jerry, man, appreciate the thoroughness and everything of these ads you're sending, but you can I'll get you set up on our upload system and you can just upload these, you know, and it'll take like 5 minutes. You'll be done. You don't have to go through all this. And he just said, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to keep doing it this way and I'll just keep shipping them to you. So he's just, I don't know, a funny story of, you know, sort of sticking to what you know. And he did it that
and
way
Mike kept a computer, one of his wife's old laptops from like 2001. It was the Jerry Bickel computer because it was the only computer he had that he could put the little mini I thought the mini discs were cool because it looked like some CIA shit. You know what I mean? Like
they were cool. They were cool in 2001, but then we've moved past that. But yeah, I have my Jerry Bickel computer that I kept around for the one time a year when I got his new set of ads, so I could pop that into that computer, put them on that hard drive, put them on a USB stick, put them on my production computer, and then upload them to our to the same place that I was asking Jerry to upload it. So it's just a funny story where he just was like, nah, I'm just going to keep doing what I know. I'm good at this. I know the whole process. And just a funny story, you know, it was really one of my main interactions with him throughout the year. So I'll miss that. And I still got some of the DVDs here and I'll have to pull them out. And
I want one of those. Like, send me one because I want to keep one forever. But like Jerry, he, to the point of many people in the comments here, I always was impressed with Jerry's willingness to like work on other people's stuff or provide input on other people's stuff. That's not something that's commonplace, in my opinion. It was, I think Jerry was wise enough to know that if he helped you get your XYZ race cars built successfully, the next time it would come back to him. It's called the rule of reciprocity. And I'm a big believer in it. It's like what goes around comes around, right? And he would help people, whether they were his customer or not, whether they were racing a JBRC car or not. He would try to be helpful. He would try to provide value, well knowing that when that person won the lottery or came into some money or their business exploded, when they thought about building a race car, they were going to call the guy that did them a solid at Jerkwater Dragway in 1997. And I think that is a lesson. That is a lesson we can all take something from. So anyways, I'm glad.
Jerry also built, in a lot of people's opinions, the best cars in door slammer racing and sort of paved that pathway for a lot of these guys. And we talked about how it starts with one guy, and Ricky Smith was a very close friend with Jerry and worked with him from the start, always had Jerry Bickel cars, and the Jim Yates championship winning pro stock cars where Jerry built those cars. He was, I think, the unofficial crew chief of Jim Yates during those years in the early 90s. And you could almost see that legacy. When you bought a Jerry Bickel car, you were getting the research and knowledge from those years with Jim Yates. You were getting everything that Ricky Smith has learned through all of these years. And again, like you said, it's about maintaining those relationships and sort of hitching your wagon to someone, and what Jerry did for Ricky, but Ricky also did a lot for Jerry and all the other customers, to where Jerry had so many customers. He was getting so much data and so much feedback. You look at Jim Halsey in today's Pro Nitrous. I mean, we would be here the rest of the day if we named all of Jerry Bickel's current cars that are out there and current customers. But all of that goodwill came back to him through all these cars and everything he learned through the years, and he built what a lot of people consider the standard in door slammer racing. So
I think he introduced this notion of not having every car that comes off the jig be this one-off. And I think that's something that is a little bit like counterintuitive, because I believe, and this is just me just saying shit that I think is true, right? But I think about it. If you're spending, let's say, like $200,000 on a race car, right? I think there's part of you that wants it to be like one-off and unique to you and all this custom stuff, right? But Jerry was wise enough to know that that's not the pathway to success. What I need to do is create a blueprint, create a standard, and repeat it and refine it slowly and steadily over time. And I think that's
right, man.
I mean, the last time I went to Jerry Bickel race cars, it's been a little while ago. He had pro mod top sportsman chassis stacked to the ceiling. Like, they literally were stacked. I mean, they were stacked like firewood, right? But it spoke to the fact that you could call him, and then they all would fit a body, certain bodies, right? And then he could tailor it to your build. But I think a lot of racers get lost and get kind of drunk on this notion that I got this guy that built me this badass car, and no one's ever done any shit like this. Well, nobody knows how to work on it. No one knows how to make it work. There's no data.
No one knows how to tune it. And my dad is proof positive of that. In the early days of Pro Mod, that's what you did. Everybody was learning and building from scratch and innovating. And we continued down that path for too long, to where we, continue to, we're going to have a 55 Chevy. It's going to be a one-off. We're going to do all this unique stuff to it. And there came a point where no one knew how to tune the thing. We couldn't repeat. We called it a bastard. It was a bastard child because everything on it was a one-off. And finally, the last couple of years of my dad's career, we all kind of sat down and said, hey, if we're going to do this, let's go get a Camaro. Let's go get a 68, 69 Camaro. Let's get a Bickel car. Let's get an RJ car, something that someone else that has proven data and can help us tune this thing and get to where we want to be. So we can go out here and make some low 370s runs, go 200 miles an hour, and achieve some of these goals instead of fighting this uphill battle. So exactly to your point, that's what we did. And my dad, he actually posted something on Facebook about Jerry, saying that Bickel Camaro we had there the last couple of years of his career was the best car he ever had, and he wishes he'd had one sooner. That's no knock on anyone else, any other car that we had through the years, because it was just a different time period and everyone was doing different things. But for those last few years, that driving that car and the repeatability, the tunability, the data that we had on it allowed us to do the things that we wanted to do. So it's proof positive of exactly what you're saying.
I mean, I see it like right now, if you're going to go run, like most of these teams, especially the ones that are really successful, have like a rubric. They know that like, hey, with this car and these shocks, this tire, you know, like this converter, these get like, we know we can make you successful. And it's tough because there's a dance, there's a balance, because you're excited for a new chassis builder to get an opportunity, right? And to bring something new to the table. But unless you're
Pro Mod, I mean, everything I just said runs against everything that we love about Pro Mod. But sometimes you're tired of fighting that uphill battle.
It depends on where you're at. Going back to talking with Megan, it depends on like which season you're in and what. Like if you're the guy that's got endless resources and you've got a big business and you're full of piss and vinegar and you're not going to get burnout anytime soon, you're the guy that can build a Lamborghini Pro Mod, right? With a new chassis builder that no one's ever heard of, because you've got some runway, you know. But a lot of guys, they don't have that, you know. And I think about, this is something that's never been lost on me, is resell name value. Like, well knowing, like going into this, like, hey man, what Jerry Bickel, Rick Jones, Tim McCamus, so many of these guys, Jerry Haas, what they represent is a real brand that was built, Tommy Mooney, that was built over time, right? They want not a flash in the frying pan deal, not something that was hot for a minute. Larry Jeffers, I think, falls into that category at this point in time, where it's a known commodity. You know what you're getting. If you put it on Racing Junk or on Facebook Marketplace, people know what that represents. Like if somebody sees one of those aforementioned names in an ad, they know what they're going to get. A brand has been built over the course of time. And I just, you know, that stuff's, I mean, I certainly want the door to be open to the next one, right? Because all those guys, it's interesting because so many of these people came from Bickel or came from one of these other guys. They were a shop foreman at one of these shops and then they went off on their own. I mean, that's just like the natural life cycle. But anyways, a long way to say to everybody at Jerry Bickel Race Cars and his friends and family, our sincere condolences. An absolute legend and an icon in the sport of drag racing that will not soon be forgotten, man. What a show, guys. Hell of a conversation. We're like 2 hours and 6 minutes in. I think we actually started on time today. So kudos to the whole group, Blake, JT, Mike, for keeping us honest. I do want to remind each and every one of you that the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of a slew of sponsors, including Redline Synthetic Oils, Stroud Safety, Type A Motorsports, FlowRacing.com, and Racers Club. So log on, support the brands that support us. Tune in next week. Make sure you click like, click share, click subscribe, support Drag Illustrated and all these pieces of content we send out to the world, and help us share the gospel of drag racing, guys. We'll see you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel and Facebook page and wherever you consume your podcast. Peace out, guys. Appreciate you. See you in Charlotte, Jim Parks.